Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Nicholas Mutinda from Nairobi branch. This is the second video of human resource planning. In the first video we discussed on the first 5 subtopics. In this second video we are going to discuss on the last 4 subtopics. We'll be discussing on the demand forecasting, supply forecasting, the challenges of human resource planning, and how to make human resource planning successful. I want to remind you, if you have not watched the first video, kindly look for Human Resource Planning 1 and you'll be able to get it. Now, probably, if you have not also subscribed, I want to remind you to subscribe. You just need to click on the subscription button there below the video and you'll be able to receive more of these videos. Otherwise, welcome and enjoy watching. Two point six demand forecasting. Demand forecasting. So when we talk about demand forecasting, what really do we mean by demand forecasting? What is to forecast? What is to forecast demand? What do we mean by demand forecasting? Now, remember we are talking about human resource planning. And in subtopic 2.5, we talked about scenario planning. Scenario planning. So when we are talking about scenario planning, is you are looking at the requirements, you are looking at the available human resources in the organization. You are looking at the available human resources in the organization. Now, how is it connected with demand forecasting? It is connected to demand forecasting this way. Now, you look at the organization. What are the available human resources in the organization? What are the ICT experts do we have in the organization? How many finance experts do we have in the organization? How many purchasing supplies specialists do we have in the organization? And now when you talk about demand forecasting, you are looking at, based on the scenario planning, what will we require as an organization? What will we require as an organization? So demand forecasting is being able to predict the number of employees that will be required by the organization depending on the strategic objective of the organization. Depending on the strategic objectives, depending on the strategic direction of the organization. If, for instance, the organization is talking about digitization, definitely we will require ICT experts. If you are talking about, for instance, expanding out of Kenya to other African countries, the organization will require experts, will require more personnel. If you are talking about minimizing costs, probably by using robots, the organization will require people who are specialized in robots and who can be able to guide the organization on that line. Now, when you are talking about demand forecasting, now based on that strategic direction, based on that strategic objective of the organization, what will be the required number of employees? What will be the required kind of employees? You are forecasting demands for number of employees, for right quality of employees, depending on the strategic objectives of the organization, depending on the strategic direction of the organization, depending on the strategy of the organization. What were the required number of employees required. What are the required number of employees that will be required for the organization? That is basically what we mean by demand forecasting. So, how do you do demand forecasting for the organization? How do you do demand forecasting for the organization? You can probably use several ways. Number one is the manager expertise. You can use the manager expertise. Some managers, depending, managers expertise. You can use the managers to be able to predict what will be the required kind of employees and the required quality of employees, quantity of employees required for the organization. You can use the managers. Managers can be able to predict. Managers can be able to judge based on what we have. For instance, if you are talking about, let's say we are running restaurants. We have a restaurant in Moy Avenue, along Moy Avenue, and the restaurant along Moy Avenue serves about 500 customers a day. Serves 500 customers a day, and we can be able to serve these customers comfortably with a staff of 70 or 80 staff, whereby we have 50 waiters, 10 chefs, and those others 20 the others. Now, based on this, a manager can make a judgment. Since we are planning to open a new restaurant along Tomboya Street, and Tomboya Street is very busy as compared to Moy Avenue. So we are expecting to be serving 1,000 customers a day. Now, based on this, we can say, since we were serving 500 customers along Moy Avenue, and now we are going to be serving 1,000 of, let's say, 800. Probably we require about 120 employees. Of these 120 employees, 70 will be waiters, 15 will be chefs, and those others. We are making judgment based on the experience. The manager, based on his experience, is able to make a judgment of the number of employees required. You can also talk about demand forecasting based on the ratio of turnover. You are doing a ratios. How many customers are being served by 2 employees? 1 employee serves how many customers? Depending on the ratios. This may be turnover analysis. Depending on the turnover analysis, this will be the required number of employees, because our turnover says 10% of the employees who join the organization always leave within 2 years. Based on the analysis, the turnover analysis, 10% of the employees who join the organization leave within 6 months. 10% of the organization of the employees leave within 1 year. Based on that analysis. Now, based on the other external factors, based on technology, what will be doing, what kind of work? Based on technology, we will not require cashiers, because people are now adopting online payments. We don't require all these kind of cashiers, because probably you are being served by 10 cashiers. But based on technology, we require just 4 cashiers, and we will be able to serve, because you are using technology and it's efficient and effective. What is the technology? Based on what the other organizations are adopting. this will be the required number and kind of employees. Now, the other thing we can talk about demand forecasting is that demand forecasting has long-range factors. Long-range factors. Whereby we are talking about 5 to 10 years period, long range. What is the long-term strategy of the organization? Is it talking about expansion? Is it talking about digitization? What are the demographics? The kind of customers we are serving now, in 10 years' time will have changed. So we must change with those, with change in demographics, change in population, long-term range factors. Demand forecasting may also be influenced by economic trends. How do we expect the economy to perform? How do we expect the economy to perform? How do we expect production? What will be the customer demands in 10 years? What are government policies? Because a government policy may be saying, we want labor intensive. Labor intensive organizations. Probably you are in production. Now the government is outlawing, doesn't want require technology. It wants labor intensive because of doing away with unemployment. So based on that, what will be the demand? Because probably you might be, the work you are doing is done by machines. Now since the government is coming up, is trying to move from capital intensive to labor intensive. So you require more labor than now. It may be the opposite. The government, the government is trying to influence capital intensive, moving from labor intensive because probably there is low unemployment. So what are those government policies? Those are the things that you will always look when you are coming up with demands, when you are doing human resource demand forecasting, and they will be able to ensure that you are able to predict correctly, probably, even though you can't be 100% correct, but you can be able to 90%, 80% prediction. Now that is all about human resource demand forecasting. So 2.7, human resource supply forecasting. Human resource supply forecasting. So we have done scenario planning, we have done human resource demand forecasting. Now we are on human resource supply forecasting. And when you are talking about human resource supply forecasting, we are trying to forecast, we are trying to estimate, we are trying to predict what will be the supply of labor in the market. And not only supply, we are not talking about labor supply. We are going a bit further. What will be the supply of the people we have forecasted we will require? Remember, we have identified under the demand forecasting, we have identified the employees we will require in 10 years period, in 5 years period. Now, what will be the supply of those that we will require as an organization? We have realized we require 1,000 ICT experts. So what will be the supply of the 1,000 ICT experts in the labor market. What will be the supply of 1,000 ICT experts in the labor market? And when you are talking about supply forecasting, we are talking about in the either external or internal. So we have forecasted we require 1,000 ICT experts. How many will we have in the organization? Internal forecasting. How many will we have? Based on the scenario planning we did, based on the organization, based on the recruitment trends, based on the turnover trends, based on that, we will only have about 150 ICT experts in the organization. So, what will be the supply externally? What will be the supply externally? If in that 5 years period, for instance, now is 2020, by 2025 is when we require 1,000 ICT experts. If we place an advert in 2025 that we require 850 ICT experts, will we be able to get the 850 experts outside the organization? That is what we are calling human resource supply forecasting. What will be the supply in the market? Now, having now that, so how do you measure the supply? How do you measure? How do you predict? How do you predict? How to predict? How to forecast supply of human resources? Probably, what are the trends? What are the trends? If you are talking about ICT, how many people are joining universities to do ICT related courses? How many are joining? How many are graduating with ICT engineering, ICT related? How many are graduating? What has been the trend? What has been the trend? Probably in 2017, 20,000 graduated. In 2018, 30,000 graduated. In 2019, 50,000 graduated. Now you can see there is a trend. There is an increase. So in 2025, we expect probably 120,000 will be graduating. So there will be adequate supply of ICT experts in the market. There will be adequate supply of ICT experts in the market. Now, look at this. If you are talking about 2017 and here there was 30, here in 2017, 30,000 graduated. In 2018, 25,000 graduated. In 2019, 15,000 graduated. Definitely by 2025, you know, there will be a problem in ICT supply, ICT expert supply in the market. So you need now to start moving. How do we bridge this gap? Because based on our focus, there will be a problem. What is the job absorption of the ICT experts? What is the job absorption of the ICT experts? If you are talking about 30,000 how many are being absorbed? How many are being absorbed in the market? Because the supply might be there, might be correct, but the job demand equate you. So we are graduating 120,000 as a country, but more than 100%, more than 100,000 of these ICT graduates are going abroad, are required in US, are going to UK, where there are greener pastures. So we are supplying more, but these guys, the job absorption, those who are required, are always moving. If you are talking about, for instance, these are problems with, especially in the health sector. You find that doctors are being graduating every now and then, but they are moving for greener pastures abroad. You are trying to see what will be the supply of the human resources required by the organization. What are the government policies? For instance, now government policy is trying to encourage vocational training. Now, in 5 years' time to come, there will be a shortage of people who have specialized in humanities. That is a fact. Because now government is talking about STEM. Government is talking about vocational training. So, if your organization will require STEM related, you know you are sorted. But if the organization will require humanities, then definitely there will be a shortage. Because you are trying to gauge based on the government policy in order to ensure that you come with a correct supply forecasting. You can also check on what is happening with your rivals, with your competitors, those others in the industry. What are they doing? Because they will definitely affect whether you get. They will definitely what is happening. Will they require? Because if they will require, you will be competing. Yet supply is constant. What are the economic trends? What are the what are the technological trends? Those are things that you look when you are doing supply forecasting. Because they will help you to know that the way I'm doing it, probably there will be supply. The way I'm not doing it, probably there won't be supply. Then after you have realized, probably now you need to do the proper now. You match demand and supply. You match demand and supply. You start coming up with methods, measures to ensure that what is demanded will be supplied. Probably you start training now. You start attracting now. And then you train and develop. In order at that required period, you will be already be having them in the system, in the organization itself. In the organization itself. So I think that is all about human resource supply forecasting. That is all about human resource supply forecasting. Now, 2.8 problems or challenges with human resource planning. 2.8 problems, challenges with HRP. So what are the limitations? What are the challenges? What are the problems of doing human resource planning? What are the challenges? If you are you as a human resource manager and you are doing human resource planning, what are those challenges you are likely to face? If this is a department, human resource department, doing human resource planning, what are the problems, what are the challenges that is likely to face? And number one is resistance by employees. Resistance by employees. Remember, when we were talking about human resource planning, when we were defining it, we said you always do a job analysis. You do a job analysis, job audit, human resource audit, and you will find that some of the employees will be resisting. For instance, you are trying to see what are the available human resources in the organization. And these are things you have seen. There is this what we call famous staff audit, whereby after the evolution started in 2013, there was a staff audit. Probably each county was doing a staff audit. And there was resistance by employees. Because you find now, because you want to know, how did these employees join the organization? What skills do they have? What experience do they have? What kind of qualification did they join the organization with? So if you are talking about, you want to know how many of your employees have master's degrees? How many of your employees have undergraduate degrees? Bachelor's degrees? How many of your employees have diplomas? How many of your employees have certificate and KCSE? Now, you find their organization, there are people who came, probably they passed through the back door. They are in the organization. You are doing sub-audit. For instance, these guys are required to have bachelor's degree for them to be directors in the organization. But then you find somebody who has certificates. He's already a director. Probably followed shortcuts. That guy will not accept to be audited. That guy will not accept. The employees who have lived, who have stayed in the organization, who have worked in the organization for close to 10 years. But in that 10 years, they have not even upgraded one skill. Yet you want to know the skills, the kind of skills the employees have. Those guys will resist. Hawatakubali vivi. And they will be put all the blockages. That is number one, resistance by employees. Number two is resistance by employers. By employers. And when you are talking about employers, we are talking about top management. Based on your skills, based on your knowledge, the best practice demands that you as a human resource manager, you do human resource planning. You audit all the skills required. You audit the number of employees who have this kind of skills, who have this competence, who have this. But now, this costs money. Probably, this requires resources to implement because you realize you don't have enough. You are not paying the employees well. You don't have the right kind of employees. So you may want the organization to acquire competent employees. Now, top management may resist. Top management may not want for a human resource department to do human resource planning because they are afraid, first, of the cost of doing it, two, of the increase of cost of manpower, three, they may see that this human resource planning is not necessary. So you find you are being resisted from the top management. The top management may resist you doing human resource planning. And especially those organizations where employees are exploited. Where the organizations where employees are exploited. They won't allow. Because as long as probably they don't understand. They may not know the importance of having the right kind of employees. To them, probably is the number. As long as the number is adequate, they may not be interested on the kind of employees. And that is what you are doing, you as a human resource manager. You think that is very critical for the organizational efficiency, for the organizational effectiveness. So you find resistance by employers. Now, remember when we are talking about human resource planning, we are simply talking about, most of it is prediction. So we are talking about forecasting. So you find you may not predict 100%. Your prediction may not be 100% correct. You are predicted that by 2020, by 2025, half of the jobs, half of the duties, half of the responsibilities that are being done by human beings will be done by robots. And then tukifika 2025 unapata mambo ya robots iliisha kitambo, ni watu bado wanaendelea kufanya kazi. So what do you do? What do you do? You predicted that by 2020 we'll be able to open a new restaurant along Kenyatta Avenue. Then on March 13, the first corona case is confirmed and restaurants are closed. So you are not able to open a new restaurant. So what happens to that? Probably you open the restaurant in March, and in mid-March on 13th, when you have only operated for 2 weeks, the restaurants, the economy collapses. So what do you do? Because we are based on predictions, and predictions may not be 100% correct. May not be 100% correct. So you find that is a challenge. That is a problem in human resource planning. Nothing is what we call inadequate information. Remember, for you to do prediction, we have said we look at trends. For you to look at the trends, you need the required information. Now, most of this information may not be adequate, may not be available to you. This information may not be adequate. For instance, when you're talking about economic data, the industry data, the number of students joining universities to do a certain course, the number of graduates graduating in this course. We are talking about 69. public universities. If we want to see how many economists are graduating, this data may not be available. How many ICT experts, engineering, ICT related graduates we have per year? How many are being absorbed by the market? This information may not be available. So you find you're basing your predictions on wrong information, and when you base your prediction on inadequate information, definitely you may not be correct in your prediction. And now it becomes a challenge. It becomes a problem. Another thing is what we call uncertainties. Uncertainties. And risks. Who knew that by 2020 schools will be closed from March up to December? Who knew that? Ni nani alijua hiyo ya kwamba hakutakuwa na shule kuanzia March up to December? It has never happened. That is an uncertainty. That is an uncertainty. The other things, uncertainties based on technology. It's called technology interruptions. Who knew that typewriter will never be in existence by 2000? Computers will disrupt everything. Mobile phones will disrupt everything. Who knew that? And those are uncertainties that you cannot be able to predict. And you find they are affecting human resource planning. It becomes difficult to implement, because as you do one things, other things happen. As you are doing this, other things happen. As you are doing this, things come up which you never expected. Another thing, probably the last one, is time and expense. It is time consuming. And then number 7 is expensive. It's expensive, it's time consuming, it takes time. For instance, depending on the nature of the organization, it may take time. I remember when you are talking about expensive, for instance, you may require to get a consultant to come and do the staff audits. Especially, remember, you are coming to an organization like Nairobi City County. They had to get, I think, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It is the PricewaterhouseCoopers that did the staff audit. So they come, they look at the organization, what are the available number of employees, what are the required number of employees, what will be required probably in 2 years' time. And you find mostly, especially the banks, they always get consultants. I think McKinsey something. McKinsey something. Consultants who come and audit them. PricewaterhouseCoopers also does staff audits. And you find now it is time consuming and also consuming money. It is very expensive. So those are the few challenges or problems of human resource planning. So probably we can wrap up the topic with how to make human resource planning successful. How to make human resource planning successful. 2.9, how to make HRP successful. Number one, ensure you have adequate information. Ensure that you have adequate information. Gather information as much as possible. Knock on the government offices. Knock on the government agencies. National Bureaus of Statistics. Get knowledge. Get information in order for you to be able to make your predictions correct. So as much as possible, gather information as much as possible. Walk to universities. See what they are doing. See how many graduates, how many students are joining this particular course. Get information from the industry as much as possible. If you are in the restaurants, how many restaurants, what kind of employees are they employing? Get much information as much as possible in order to ensure that you are able to come up to make human resource planning successful. Number two is ensure much participation as much as possible. Employee participation. This is to assure them that they are not losing their job. This is to assure them that this human resource planning is for their own benefit. You require it in order to see who requires probably training and development, who requires this kind of skills, who requires to be taken to seminars. Ensure that employees are participating as much as possible. Because when you involve the employees, probably you will not get resistance. It will be accepted. Another issue about human resource planning, how to make it successful, and ensure that you appropriate time horizon. Appropriate time horizon. Plan in the appropriate time horizon. If you see there is in the industry you are in, there are changes here and now and then. Plan for 2 years. Plan for 3 years. Don't go for 10 years. Because if you plan for 10 years and there are interruptions now and then, you will not be able to get the correct predictions. So ensure that you plan for the appropriate time horizon. Don't plan for too short or for too long. Ensure the appropriate one. Ensure the appropriate one. The other one is ensure effective communication. Ensure effective communication. Communicate well. Communicate well to the employees and to the employer. Communicate to the top management. Let them know that this organization requires human resource planning. And this human resource planning will enable the organization to achieve organizational objectives. Ensure effective communication, both to all employees and to the managers. The organization might be spending probably 5 million to do staff audits. But this 5 million will help the organization save 7 million. Now, if this is communicated well to the top management, they will release that money. But if it's not communicated, definitely they will not provide that budget. So ensure effective communication. Explain what the importance of human resource planning. Now, when doing it, ensure you use the appropriate policies. Sure you use the appropriate policies, because you might do it and then you find you have not achieved anything because you use the wrong policies. For instance, how do you measure skills of employees? How do you measure employee skills? Is it by what their qualifications when they join the organization? Is it by what they are able to do now? How do you measure the competence of employees? And those are the issues, appropriate policies. Another thing, link human resource planning with the corporate strategy of the organization. Link. Ensure there is a link. Human resource planning is based on corporate planning or corporate strategy of the organization. Otherwise, you will be missing the point. You will be missing the point. Another thing is adequate organization. Ensure that when you are doing it, you have adequate organizations, you have the required skills. The people who are doing it have the required skills. You plan very well. And you will be able to do a wonderful human resource planning. You'll be able to do a wonderful resource planning. So having said that, can you quickly look at what are the factors affecting human resource plans? Factors affecting human resource plans. Factors affecting human resource plans. I think we have talked about government policies. We have talked about government policies. What are the policies? When we are talking about, is the government encouraging labor intensive, or is it encouraging capital intensive? Is the government encouraging people to go and university do STEM subjects, or is it encouraging them to do humanities? Is the government encouraging people to go for technical education or for degrees? Those are what we are calling government policies. And that is a very key factor. Another thing is the level of economic development. Your organization does not operate in isolation. If the economy is doing good, your organization is also likely to be doing good. But if the economy is going south, the economy is deteriorating, don't expect your organization to be growing up. So, the level of economic activity, the level of economic development affects human resource planning. Another very key word which we talked about, information technology. These are very key factors that affects human resource planning. Information technology. Then now, the level of technology, e.g. robots, computers. Here we are talking about phones. They affect human resource planning. Business environment. What are your competitors doing? Are they undercutting? Are they launching new products? What are the production levels? What are the raw materials required? How are customers perceiving your products? The business environment. Then probably we have international factors. International factors. Now these are external factors. These are external factors. So what are the internal factors? What are the internal factors? Probably you can look them very quickly. What are the internal factors? Company strategies. We talked about corporate strategy. Talked about corporate strategy. What are the company strategies? Internal factors. What are the human resource policies in the organization? Company strategy. Human resource policies. Human resource policies. Does your policy say that you will arrange for training and development in the organization? Because if they encourage training and development, definitely you will have employees who can be developed in the organization. But if you don't, definitely you will be required to go and search for them outside. So what are the human resource policies in your organization? Job analysis. Job analysis. Based on the job analysis, what did you find out? Then probably lastly is what we call time horizon. I think we talked about time horizon. Time horizon and very quick trade unions. Trade unions. Organizational growth cycles. Depending on the organization, probably the organization has a high season and a low season. It has a peak season and off peak. So depending on that, human resource planning is very key. Because if you are heading towards off peak, definitely you require low number of employees. If you are heading towards a peak season or a season, high season, definitely you require a high number of employees. Trade unions. Are your employees unionized? Are your employees unionized? Because that's a very key factor. If they are unionized, can you sack them as you wish? Can you transfer them as you wish? Because definitely if they are unionized, remember there is somebody who is protecting them, defending for them. So their productivity may be affected. You may want to change them. They are not productive now, but you can't change. You may want to increase them hours of work. The union is refusing. So what do? You must understand those issues. Then unless now I think unless there is a question, let's say unless we'll stop there. It's not. See, this is a video. There is no question. It's no question because this is a video. I thought I was teaching physical class. But we'll stop there. That is the end of human resource planning. This is human resource planning 2. So if you have not watched the first video, kindly look for it. Human resource planning by Mr. Nicholas Mutinda, human resource planning by Nicholas Mutinda, and you'll be able to get it. Then lastly, if you have not subscribed to my channel, kindly click there below the video and you'll be able to get more of these videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.